Hello and welcome. We like to invite all of you to join us on our epic entrepreneur adventure. I have Dottie Berry with me and myself, Yasmin Bijan Wilson. We are two of the five epic entrepreneur coaches here to speak this week on wellness, and whether it's physical well-being or mental well-being. It's been an incredible week. And I have Dottie here, who's also an expert in the area of real physical well-being. She knows a ton about nutrition, and she was a former athletic coach for a University of Kentucky, was it?
That's right.
That's right. So we are going to talk today about how we can help you gain more wellness in your life. So, Dottie, welcome.
Yasmin, I think I've got to go over and get this off because in our setup, I was
well-being. She knows a ton about nutrition, and she was a former athletic coach.
Let me just see. Do you have it up by chance?
Kentucky, was it?
That's right.
Do I have what?
So I'm trying to see if
today about how we can help. Because now I'm hearing myself back, right?
Hang on. Okay, now we got it fixed. We had just a little bit of
delay.
Technical challenges this morning, so now we're good to go. And our haste is all up. We had them all coming in. That's good. That's okay.
That's okay. We just roll with it, right, Dottie?
There you go.
We do. So welcome. Good morning, Dottie. How are you today?
Oh, listen, it's been kind of a crazy morning, as you know. It's all good. What I'm excited about, though, is you were such the master coach, Yasmin, when it comes to really defining about the topic that we're going to be talking about today. And you've shared with me just a little bit about it being the rocks, pebbles, and sand. And I had never heard that before. So I love this analogy that you're going to be sharing with everybody, because I just found for myself, wow, that is so applicable the way you were sharing it with me, prioritizing. I know your experience in not only the corporate world, but with your one-on-one coaching clients in the past, that you found this to be very effective. So I think people are going to gain a lot. I'm here to support and be your co-leader, because you're the top dog today, leading us the way. But just excited about what you've got to share.
Well, there is so much to discuss about physical well-being and mental well-being and all aspects of well-being. And as people have been tracking with us over the last few weeks, really what we want to share is all of us with our content can stem right and dovetail right into the core of what well-being is all about. And what we're going to talk about today is coming from well-being from a place of power of how we're managing our life and how that reduces stress. Because when we reduce stress, we do have a better sense of well-being. And when we actually incorporate things in our life that are important to us, we have much greater sense of satisfaction, joy, peace, and happiness. And so that is truly another aspect of what we talk about as well-being. Versus earlier we talked about this week about the physical well-being and eating right and nutrition. We talked about what well-being means, which we know our coach Jen talked about self-love. So in essence, I want to tie it all together because they really do all dovetail in one another. So with the rocks, pebbles, sand can absolutely tie into the self-love, because the rock in our life, the pebbles in our life, and the sand in our life could either support us and source us, or it can totally sap our energy, stress us out. I mean, we personally know of someone who landed themselves in the hospital. Who knows why, but it was probably a culmination of a variety of things, of perhaps stress or different things. And so we don't want to find ourselves there. So if we can really look at, gosh, what can we do that really laser focuses us on what's important? So the rocks, pebbles, sand is such a critical thing to incorporate. And it's so simple, like you said, Dottie. Yeah. So the rocks are, think of it this way, and some people might have heard this. You take a jar, right? And if you fill that jar with sand first, and then you try to fill the jar with pebbles, likely there's not much room for the big rock to go inside the jar. And that's much like how we run our lives. So the sand is all the minutia in our life. We're running around, right? Totally. Like errands, like what else would be a minutia? Like all the emails and follow up and those urgent things that happen in life that we're knee-jerk reacting to.
You don't want to do that you find yourself doing, and why? Why do we do that?
Why do we do that? Well, it's just, I guess we think it's the easier thing to do is to deal with the sand. And then the next one would be the pebbles. And the pebbles might be something that are a little bit more urgent. They are important to us. We might get to them. It could be something like, all right, we're going to go hang out and spend some time with family. But let's say we spend some time being invited to an event that we really don't have any place or business going to because we really are not taking care of ourselves or taking care of our family first. And so we go to this event and we try to pack everything in. And again, now we're tapped out. We're stressed out because we're trying to put too much in the jar. And then the rocks, I would say, are things that really support our health and nutrition. So like, are we eating healthy? Are we getting our exercise? Are we working on the main things in life that are critical, like time with our spouse, time with our family, working on our business, doing the rocks in our business? In other words, the marketing strategies like income generating activities. Those are rocks in your business, working on your business. So those are the things. Now, by the end of the day, if we're running around taking care of all this minutia and putting out the fires, we're not going to have time to really grow our business, really putting the attention where it needs to be, marketing and selling. So if you reverse that, for example, and with the analogy of the jar, you take the jar, you put the rocks in first. So in business, you put income generating activities first. Or with your health, you eat right, like a great breakfast, or you do yoga or a meditation, something that really sources you. Now that's your rock. It's a foundation. Then you put your pebbles in. So whether it's, going to events that you can choose to do or not to do, but really is in alignment with what's inside of your commitment to yourself, to your business, and to your family, what's important to you. That would be pebbles. And then the sand, like the errands and all the minutia and follow-up, things like that, so get caught up and it takes up so much of our time. And now that goes on top. And you can just infill now the jar with the sand, and now they all fit. So in our life and in our business, if we actually reprioritize what's important to us, we can not only get more done because we're more efficient, make more money and work less, but it's really about being able to be eyes wide open. And we talked about, you and I, the first week about mindset and taking it from the blind spot to full view and really look at what are our priorities and what would a rock in our life or business look like. So, what did you hear about what I just shared? Was it something similar to your experience?
I think what you shared was great. And what I got to thinking was, Yasmin, was, wow, lots of times when we take that sand and the pebbles first, if you take a little bit further, your analogy about the jar. So here's the rock. Now I'm trying to cram the rock into the jar and it breaks. That's like it becomes the stress, that really breaks things up. And we've all had that before, whereas we put the rock in first and then the pebbles in the sand, it ends up being this really pretty thing sitting in the jar. And so I was just thinking, wow, sometimes what we're doing is we're cramming the most important things, our income generating activities, our time with our spouse, or, or with ourselves if we're single, we don't, or we're with friends or whatever. But the really important things, the question becomes not one of judgment, but why do we leave those things to last? What is it about it that is serving us? And a lot of people say, no, that's not working for me. And I say, well, we don't, really, we do things that work for us in some way. It's either working negatively or positively, but we have to begin to take a look at, why am I doing things that way? So I love your analogy.
It really, and I love yours taking it to another level, which is, again, what's the joy of being able to soundboard with each other and have conversations about it. Because when you talked about cramming the rock in the jar and then it crashes and breaks, that was a total visual. People have gone bankrupt. They've bankrupted their health. They've bankrupted their businesses. They've bankrupted their lives because it literally has shattered because they didn't prioritize what was important. So in business, the income generating activities are critical. So sales activities, going, prospecting for new clients, learning new strategies that help you sell, learning new strategies that help you market, then also implementing. So those are critical in the business. And what people don't necessarily always realize or believe they can do is to build a team around them, to outsource or collaborate. And that is a fantastic way to stay focused on your rocks. Another way of saying a rock might be, what is your strength? A rock is strong. So what is your strength? Focus on your rock of strength. So you're not spending so much time on what's pebbles and sand for you. You can outsource the pebbles and sand. In other words, in your business, if the follow-up emails or taking calls or any of those things are going on, I work with interior designers a lot, and they are putting together design, CADs and things like that. There's different words and things like that. So one of my coaching strategies is just simply hire someone who you can outsource that to. Mm-hmm. So that way you really look at what are your strengths, what do you need to do in your business, and whatever you don't like doing, outsource, and whatever you do like doing and you're successful at, keep going. And that absolutely would be staying you focused on your rock.
And Yasmin, that's a great tip there. And in thinking about that, people say, well, how do I know what to outsource? And I say to them, tell me what feeds you, what gives you energy. What are you doing when you're really excited, you're passionate, you just can't even hardly go to sleep because you're working on it? And tell me the things that are activities that are just energy suckers. Mm-hmm. Sometimes those are people, sometimes those are activities, sometimes you have to outsource those people out of your life. I mean, but we all have to look at, there's only 24 hours in a day. And how do I get the best? And there's one point I wanted to bring up, Yasmin, because as we begin to do these things, if we don't take care of ourselves, if we don't take care of that self-love, then what it does to our body, what we have found is in this age, in this era that we live in, there are a lot of different types of stresses maybe than were before. But you know what? We don't know the stresses that they felt, when you were having to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to milk cows and, these kind of things that we don't do anymore. We can never understand what those stresses meant to them. And so they might have done similar things. But what we do know is that we live in a world where there are a lot of different stresses. And if we don't manage those, they will manage us. And they will either go in or out. We will end up either blowing up at people, at situations, or it will go internal and it will harm our body, because research has shown that stress begins to eat away at the really good processes that are going on. It can change the chemicals in our mind. And, even when you're talking about, bankruptcy and health and different things, let's look at it as a cascading effect. And sometimes there's been things that people could have done to avoid a bankruptcy. And sometimes you're caught in circumstances. Either way, though, the bottom line is bankruptcy. And then oftentimes people end up in a bankruptcy. The majority of people in the United States end up in a bankruptcy because of health issues. And that's often the reality, and so one follows the other when it's a health issue that is so astronomical that they cannot handle it, So you have all these sort of interlocking things, and when the rocks and the pebbles and the sand get stuck to each other, you know what I'm saying? And then you're trying to pull them out of that jar and you're like, oh my gosh, how do I pull this out now? It's all gotten stuck because things have gone wrong, and it's like there was something that melted it all together.
Absolutely. And when people start to really look at themselves and being more self-aware of how they're running their lives, they're leading their lives, they're living their lives, and start to look at healthier priorities and really what's important to them, living from a place of an inspired passion, and that really has you be, lit up at night, or in the day or anytime, like you were saying, like what really has you get excited. Yeah. Like that's a much different place to operate your life from than, oh my God, I have to go do this. Now, oftentimes we have to do things that are uncomfortable for us and they're outside our comfort zone. That's, all the time, right? But as you evolve as a person, as you go through transformation, you start to recognize and own your strengths and look for ways to collaborate with people. Like, for example, you and I, we joke all the time. I'm not a technical person, but I'm a great coach. I love to inspire people on stages when I'm motivating. I know I do a great job.
Yeah.
And this whole Google Hangout, it's new for me, right? I don't know how to do all the technical stuff, but we're collaborating. You're like, I got your back. We're going to do this. I really want to tap into your knowledge and resources. And for you, Dottie, same thing. Well, you're just so multi-talented. You can do the technical, you can do the inspiration, you're a great coach, you have all that, but then the areas for you, whatever that might look like, I know you have worked with other people so that you can outsource to them. Like, give an example of something you might have done.
Yeah, like just recently, I had to really tap into, we've given you all the opportunity to discover your epic code. Okay, so let's just talk about mine for a minute, Yasmin. I am an ECIP, okay? And
say more about that, because some people might not be familiar.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to do. So that stands for Extraordinary Connector Intelligent Professional. Those are the ones for those codes. But what that means even more, most of the time, people who are pretty entrepreneurial, one of their first two codes is probably going to be an E, because flexibility, spontaneity, and those kind of things. There's aspects of the E, they're not what are important to me, but that flexibility and freedom, woo, that gets.
Right. I hear that. Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate.
Yeah.
Because they're epic entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's what about get your biz lean. I mean, so I've been an entrepreneur for 35 years. But my C, when I do the deeper dive test, it's what on a scale of 50, it's a 43-43. So in my friendships, it's not necessary for me to be the E. You know what I'm saying? And so I do have that strong C because, for me, I've been sitting here for the last 8 years saying I want to connect, I want to engage, I want to empower, innovate, collaborate, and leverage our unique collective talents to form what I can now call epic synergistic partnerships globally. And so, that rolls off the tip of my tongue because I say it every day, like we talk about doing our backs in the mirror, I've done those in the mirror. I do it when I walk because I wanted to allow a space for these things to come into my life. And so as I, look at my code and everything, the P, the professional, what that means is that's really about processes and blueprints and sort of ordered. Well, that's not my natural, okay? It's not that I can't do it. I love training on systems, okay? When I find a system I love, I'll train on it all day long. Love, love, love that. But my forte has not been creating that. But over the last 6 months, as I created Discover Your Epic Code, and also another tool that helps an entrepreneur discover the answer to the number one question they have, and that is, if they want to create a course, they never know how many people it's going to take to manifest that, in a way that's productive for them in terms of creating financial wherewithal, making an impact in their income and making an impact in the world by getting their course out there. So I created this other tool called the Epic Freedom Calculator that calculates your Epic Freedom Quotient and tells you automatically, just answer a few questions, what that number is. So Yasmin, oh my gosh, did I have to get in my discomfort, because there were times when those details were almost feeling so overwhelming to me. I wanted to stop sometimes, literally, but I had to stay in it. But I was so passionate. Here's where the passion comes back in. I was so excited about creating it that overcame. Now, what I want to say about that is I stayed in my E and my conceptualness to come up with all of it. And then I hired out the coders. Listen, I didn't go and learn coding. I'm never going to do that. That would be a waste of my time. It would take me years. I would have never gotten this out so quickly. Does that make sense? So hopefully that helps people understand where you pull something forward. I did have to pull it forward. And that's the importance of knowing your own epic code, which you have the opportunity to do that. You look at the buttons that you see there, discover your epic code, go ahead and do it. But you look at your own And then when I'm working with people, I discovered their Epic code, and I can't tell you how much it's helped me because of two of the different developers I work with, one in Alabama, one in Thailand, who's actually from Arizona. And I know their code, and I know how to feed them the information. Does that make sense?
It does. And then you also know how to outsource what you don't like doing, or that you don't want to do, or don't have time to do.
Yes.
All of a sudden, I'm hearing an echo. Wait, now it's gone away.
Okay.
Okay, it's gone away. So back to the rocks, pebbles, sand. Oftentimes, the sand, it could be our weaknesses that we're trying to spend so much time to overcome and put added stress on ourselves versus, like you said, hire the coder, right? And outsource that aspect. So now you're not wasting so much time on something you're not good at, or you might be good at, but it doesn't really juice you. Or even if you are good at it, you can still outsource it because you're better at other things like what we're doing here. So it is so important to stay focused on not only your strengths, what juices you, and then also that you can make money at it. There is a great book called Good to Great. Have you ever heard of Good to Great?
What is it?
Good to Great. The book
I
Good to
have
Great.
heard of it, but I have not read it.
There is a great, so simple, great concept that really is so powerful for entrepreneurs. And I'm going to share that and how it dovetails into the rocks, pebbles, sand. It states in the book that if you are passionate about what you do, but aren't good at it, like someone who might be passionate about singing, but they're not good at it, do you think anyone's going to give them money?
Yeah.
Probably not. So let's say whoever is listening, whatever business you're looking at, look at, are you passionate about it, but are you also good at it? Because then you have a higher likelihood of making money at it. Right? So it's a trifecta. So you want to look for something that you're good at and that you're passionate about and can make you money. That is the sweet spot. And
now,
so
one more thing, I believe, Yasmin, and I hope you don't mind me offering it.
No, go for it. This is what it's all about.
This is what I'm working with the educator entrepreneurs, the people who want to develop a course. And that is, people often start backwards, in my opinion. I like to reverse engineer a lot of things. You know that about me.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people like to get in the minutia, talking about the minutia, create content, this content this week, this content this week, this content this week. They've got all this content and they're not getting it out in the world. My philosophy is create your content and then leverage it, but create the content that the market wants.
Yeah.
I don't care if you do create one piece of content and try to leverage it. If there is not a market for it, in other words, you can be passionate about something, you can be good at it, but if there's no market for it, it makes no difference.
Well, that ties into, does it make money? So it has to be a market. So really it is those three. And to what you're saying, if there's no market for it, no one's going to pay you for it. Therefore, it's not going to make you money. So really bringing in those three. So it's like an acid test, right? Yeah. And then this is not part of the book that I just described as Good to Great, but I've talked to you about an elf business. Is it easy? Is it lucrative? And is it fun? Now, these are all things that we're sharing to help our audience identify, like, are they in the right place? Are they in the right service or in the right product, right? Because yes, is the market going to pay you for what you do? Now, watch this. If the market pays you really well, there's a huge demand for what you do, and you're even good at it. But guess what? You're not passionate about it. Yeah. What happens? You burn out.
Burnout. I agree.
That's burnout. You know what I mean? Like people in the stock market, let's use that as an example. They work, 80 hours a week and they're making tons of money and they're really good stockbrokers. Yeah. But they're not passionate about it. And then they just absolutely can implode from the pressure, or since they're not passionate about it, other areas of their life go bankrupt. So I want to highlight that when you don't have all three, ideally, now I'm just talking ideally, you want to do like a little acid test on projects that you're looking at for people who want to start a business, or if they're already doing a business, focusing on where to put their energy, put their attention on the rocks. Okay, this is where it ties in. If they,
Yasmin, there's a
yeah.
great example. I don't know if you know of this lady, but since you mentioned that, her name is Tama Keeves. She's a great coach, has written wonderful books, and she was a high-powered lawyer, and she wanted to be a writer and a coach. Her family did not get it. She made great money, you know what I'm saying? But the one that was missing was her passion. And she left this high-powered position, being a partner and so forth, making great money, because she wasn't passionate about it, and she was burnt out. I mean, she was just almost dead inside.
Yeah.
Now she's living her passion, and I think you hit on something that is so, so key for people. And on the other end of it, the making money, the point I was really going to try to tweak out a little bit is, just because there's never been a market before, okay, this is real important, doesn't mean there's not a market. It means that maybe nobody's ever tapped into a market. So you can, check it out to see further. Look, just because nobody's done it, let me see if there's a market, and maybe there is a market and I can feel that. And that's about the ultimate niche, because really it's about niching down. I call it the epic niche is the bullseye in the target. And think about it, epic, they always seem big, but in this case, it's really tiny. If you don't even hit the target, you're not even close to your niche. If you really want to hit your target, get it so tight that you can't miss it. It's like you hit the bullseye every time. So just as you were moving into that.
No, absolutely. You know what I think of, who pops into my mind when you're talking about that, like being a pioneer in the market and, and testing to see if there is even a market. Look at Steve Jobs and Apple Computer. Do I need to say any more? Total pioneer, revolutionized the industry. And of course, it's almost like a cult following. But back in the day, right? I mean, he was absolutely ahead of his time. So when you look at other people who've gone before, look at what traits and qualities they have, and maybe some of their challenges, even read some of their bios and start to, gather this information. I'm an avid learner. I know you're an avid learner. Everybody who's an epic entrepreneur expert that you've collected here, all 5 of us, we're all avid learners. And I learned so much from other people, just hearing their stories, and understanding what their challenges were, and standing on the shoulders of what they experienced that worked and didn't work. And so what we all get to do over these 5 weeks, right, with our bonus week, is share with the experience collectively, and it's just exponential now. And taking what you just shared about being able to make money and having a market. If there's no market, then create one and test it and see, and if it's not, don't buy a 30-year mortgage, so to speak, in something that's not working. But to go back to, right?
We call it fail quickly and move on.
That's it. Fail quickly and move on. I love that. That's true. It's true. Because we dwell in it, and then, we're like, boo-hoo, and we go into our pity parties. I say, give yourself an amount of time, like, okay, I'm going to have a pity party for this amount of time, and then I'll be done with it. But I wanted to go back to, again, those 3 things, because I wanted to review that, because it's really critical that people identify as they want to go from startup to growing their business to being a real significant company, right? If you take your product that you're passionate about, or your service you're passionate about, you're good at, and you make money, that's a very viable business. And then you layer ELF on it because it's easy, lucrative, and fun. Now you're rocking, right? In my opinion, like, that's what I look for. And so it just makes such a big difference. If you're passionate about what you do, right, and you make money at it, that's awesome. And you just have to make sure that it fits now in your lifestyle and that you can have the other priorities. So I wanted to connect this conversation to something that I call healthy priorities. And it's very unique in how I was trained in it through my accomplishment coaching training. And we all know that putting yourself first is the best, or self-love or self-care. That is just absolutely critical. And we all struggle with it because we have families, we have jobs, we have clients, we have bosses, we have, all these other things pulling at us, right? The healthy priorities, without question, number 1 is self and self-care. And this is very interesting. When I first was trained on this, I was like, what? The second is actually, and I know you do this really well, Dottie, is really the second is your spouse. And here's why, especially as an entrepreneur, because if your spouse goes down, that's your partner, that's your, partner in crime, that's the person who's running life with you and probably maybe your business, it impacts you.
Yeah.
So, and also that connection, and that love, that source for support, love, and energy. So number 2 on healthy priorities is spouse. And that also, however that looks, even if it's one day a week or every single day for a few minutes or whatever that structure looks like, but making that spouse a top priority is important. We have a friend who has a spouse that's in a hospital, and I can't even imagine what she's going through. And like, she is not able to take care of her other priorities because she needs to focus on her spouse and get him back up and running as her life partner, right? It makes such an impact on your life. And I was thinking about that as we were talking about today's topics and what our dear friend is going through. But I can see how that could be a struggle for people too, because we take it for granted, our spouse, just like we take for granted our health. Yeah. So we actually put those last oftentimes. And, I've been a culprit of it myself. So I'm constantly reminding myself, that's why we teach what we most need to learn. That's why I sought out coaching, and then we become coaches because I'm like, oh, I can do that. I mean, I'm juiced by that. So that's it. And then number 3 is work. So whatever it is in your work. So the work aspect of it would be obviously the aspects of your income generating activities. So your rock, so I'm going to tie this in with the rock. Yourself and your spouse is a self-care rock, is a personal rock, is a wellness rock, right? The income generating activities and your work and the work that generates revenue, that puts food on your table and clothes on your back and pays the mortgage and allows for your kids' education, whatever that is, work is very important, and it's your work rock. So that's really critical. But we want to put ourselves and our spouses first, and we want to put work, and within work, we want to do our income generating activities. You with me?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I'm just, as you're saying it, I'm just kind of prioritizing myself.
Yeah, right. I'm re-inspiring myself because I'm like, I need to definitely make some shifts too. And then the next is family and friends, or friends and family. There are 5 healthy priorities. So whatever really sources you, always come back to what sources you in putting the oxygen mask over yourself. Now, I love my family. They live back in California and I live in Denver. So I have to do it in pocket amounts of time, right? Holidays or every few months I'll go back. And that is, as you know, like the 4th quarter of last year, health issues with my dad, things like that became such a priority. So I put my family. But here when I live in Denver, my friends have become my network of family. You guys are like now my family, right?
Our 5 generations were family.
Right, exactly. So whatever your definition is, and that is so critical. But keeping in mind of who those friends and family are for you, that they source you and they give you energy. And Cheryl and I talked about this, the energy givers and the energy suckers. And sometimes we're related to the energy suckers, or we can't get them out of our life. But you can certainly be mindful about managing how that's going to go. And gosh, when I was younger, I attended every networking event, every gathering, every social event. I was out there. I burnt out. So now, right? So I really looking at healthy priorities, which friends and which family. I mean, I'd love to do it for everybody, but then what happens is, I'm going to show this. It's my healthy priorities. And so what happens is these start to shift around. So if I put more energy on family and friends, I might not be putting it up here. So, we're going to talk about the
eventually you're not even good for your friends at that point. I mean, you're doing so much you don't do for yourself that eventually you end up having a blow up at them out of the blue, it seems like.
Out of the blue.
From not taking care of oneself. And, there was a time in my earlier years, the one thing I do have the advantage over in this group is more history. So as I look back at history, though, I can say there were times in my life where anybody who wanted my time could have it, and I realized that didn't work. Not that I didn't like that person or whatever, but there's just some people, some situations that feed me, you know what I'm saying? And I want more of that. And there's people that you're around, you go, wow, whatever you got, I want some of you. You just feel better in their space. And it's like when you and I met, we were like, we knew we were going to be friends for life. And we have that kind of connection, So it doesn't come along every day, and every person does not have that. But there's billions of people in the world. My goodness, there's only 24 hours in a day. We just can't live life that way.
Well, exactly. And so I got really clear on people who juice me, people who source me, and I can source them. I mean, it's a two-way street, right? Mutual,
Yes.
because it's like dating or any other relationship. It's give and take. And I'll tell you, my mom, as you know, she passed a little over a year and a half ago. I met you shortly after that. And there were times that it took me at least a year to overcome that. And now my dad sadly is going through some health challenges severely, like going through radiation treatment and things like that. And even though I have all these friends and family, I find myself like I'm barely even treading water during those times of, for example, such grief after my mom had passed, that I didn't feel like I could even like have the energy to even go spend time with my friends and family. I knew that they were there. And then I just asked them, please be patient with me. I'm going, and even if I wasn't aware that's what I was doing, not being as social, it just was my grieving process, right? But I knew that they were there and they would love me unconditionally. And those are the people that I want in my life, and that know that I will be there for them and they're there for me. And I knew I could pick up the phone anytime. But we all go through our own processes in one way or the other. And I can tell you that just knowing their love was there and their support made such a difference. And those are the people that I may not see them all the time. I may not talk to them all the time, but they know I'm thinking of them and they're thinking of me, because we know we got families and friends and business and all these other things. And just being around those people that really juice us. And from my history, that is what I've also come to figure out, because the people part of us wants to be around everybody, but we need to actually be more mindful and aware of like our energy, and like, wait, we're getting sapped, people are sucking our energy, and now I don't have time for self-care, my spouse, my children, none of that. So I know this last
I don't know if you've found this, but when you get back around those people that are your tribe, your people, you
totally
just right back up.
It's right back up.
The people that it's hard with is if you call them and the first thing they say, well, I don't know why you haven't called in so long or something. And you think, man, the telephone works both ways. The communication works both ways. And you begin to avoid those people and not have them in your life. But when I call somebody or they call me and I just go, oh my gosh, it is so good to hear your voice. And we just pick up.
You just pick up where you left off. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where I want to, come back to. Not that friends aren't important, but you got friends or family down here. But keep those, keep those friends that are gold and keep those friends that are silver. I remember singing that song in camp, when I was in elementary school, make new friends, but keep the old. You're right. One is silver and one is gold. So friends are so critical. In fact, for women in particular, they have done studies that friendships are absolutely a humongous aspect to women's well-being and satisfaction in life, because we're connectors and we need that level of support and connection, or tribe in our village. So, things like this that we're doing. And I try to look for people who I align with. We're going in that same direction. You and I are both coaches.
Right.
We empower people. So I love hanging out with you, even if it's, over the internet. You're all the way up in Washington and I'm here in Denver. But like, you could be sitting in my living room, like we talk about, this is what this is about, the blabs and the hangouts. Let's just hang out. It just looks a little bit different now that we're in the era of the Jetsons, right? So, these are different ways to prioritize. And so this is how I've scheduled a way to keep our friendship going in a more, ongoing way. And, projects that we can align on, and it's great. And then we're doing this and we're inspiring others, right? So this is what we're sharing as an example, that we invite people to surround themselves with people that source them, nurture them, support them, love them, support what they're up to. Like Cheryl was saying, balcony friends, balcony support. I don't know if you'd heard that term I had, but more than just an accountability buddy like you and I had originally talked about, but like from the balcony, they help aspire with you, see you up there, really going big. So that's really, it's incredible that when these things tie together and you start incorporating in your life, you really look at what sources me, what doesn't, what makes sense, what doesn't, what's a rock, what's sand, what's my passion, what's not, what's my strength, what's my weakness. And now you're starting to take it from the blind spot and putting it in view, and now you can work with it and start making changes in your life.
No, I think that's great, Yasmin. I mean, it just makes so much sense to approach it that way. And you have me just, really, really thinking in terms of my own life, and I think this is what's good. We've always said that every coach knows they need coaching, that we need reminders. And we coach the things that we often need to remind ourselves, and that's okay. That's how coaching works. And it's very important, and it's really about bringing things to a certain level of awareness, bringing it out of those blind spots, so that when we have it in our awareness, it's not about creating judgment. And there's a real distinction between therapy and coaching. We won't go all into that, but coaching really is about taking people where they're at in the space they're in, and how we're going to help them move from there to that next level. In a nutshell, that's what we do with coaching, is identifying those areas that are in your blind spot, helping you see those, helping you become aware of those, and then perhaps crafting some steps for you to take action on those, and then holding you accountable.
Absolutely. And I will say that from my coach training, it's very similar to what you said, taking people where they are to the next level. And what we do as coaches is we fill that gap. We help close that gap, not fill it, but close it. Oftentimes therapy might be the opposite, in that you're in your present moment, you're going in the past and bringing them up. So they're both powerful, but coaching is about where you're going. And you think of it in sport, it's about where you're going, or the tournament, or the Olympics, or, the Super Bowl, or whatever it is, right? Or, the championship. It's where you're going. And coaching, first and foremost, is most recognized, obviously, in athletics. Yours truly here was, an athletic coach. So it's really helping where they want to go. And that's a really fine distinction.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you know what I mean? And sometimes with the mindset, you are going in the past because that mindset came from something in the past. But the difference is that you're not dwelling in the past. You want to shift it. And then actually, this was mind-blowing for me when I heard it the first time in my personal development. I sat there and I was like, what? He said, are you ready to take your past out of your future? And I was like, for me, that was just like this, just like you don't know concept too. Phenomenal, right? And I was like, how do you do that? How do you take the past is in our future? What? I was in my 20s,
Right.
You know what I mean? So the mindset is that, because it's that automatic habit that we have in the way we think and our belief systems. That's what we say is our past. If we shift those, they won't keep reoccurring in our future, right? So that's what that means, to take the past out of the future. And that's where perhaps people might tread a bit, that it could be therapeutic in nature, but it's not therapy, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I always remind people. Look, this isn't therapy. And honestly, what I do is a lot of people who have sort of cycled through therapy several times finally realize what they really need now is coaching to get to the next level. I mean, there's only, after a while, you've done the therapy, you know what I'm saying? And therapy's great. I'm a product of therapy through the years, and coaching and everything, and I love all of it. But there's a different thing for a different reason and a different season, so you kind of have to look at where you're at. And in business and so forth, sometimes we do have to deal with, okay, that was in your past. Why are you letting that run what we're attempting to do going into your future? And mostly where that comes in, that I've seen for people, Yasmin, I don't know about you, but that their tape is looping over and over again about who they are and their identity relative to where they're going. They sometimes get stuck in a mindset that it's a belief system, and that belief system then drives or inhibits where they go in their business. And that's a good thing that I always look at is, why are you letting this mindset, which is set and stuck, we need to see how we can have a mind shift for you. And you may have to look at having a mind shift daily, in order to get you unstuck and out of the set and continued on a forward path in your business.
Absolutely. And when you have that mind shift, for example, with how you prioritize using healthy priorities, how you prioritize your time using the time management process of rocks, pebbles, sand, right?
Yep.
And really setting yourself up for success. I wanted to add one more like tactical, actionable thing, because as coaches, we're all about, okay, here's the concepts, here's how you can put it in your life. Now here's the action. So what you could do is I have so many tools here. This is all, again, from my accomplishment coaching days, is my coach training professionally, year-long, phenomenal, highly recommend it. If coaching is a business for someone they want to get into, highly recommend accomplishment coaching. But anyway, they talk about the top 6. So you take the top 6, like the rocks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those, like, no kidding, you are going to get those 6 things done. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but hands down, I kid you not, if you do those 6, your day is pretty full. And then the rest is like the pebbles and the sand of the minutia, right?
Yeah.
So whether that top 6 is you meditate,
Mm-hmm.
you go for your walk.
Yep.
You have your protein shake, whatever that is. And then you got to call, you got to call that mortgage lender because you're buying a house and you've got to do that like today. So that's your rock.
Uh-huh.
Versus like, okay, well, I got to go to the grocery store and pick up maybe, some nuts for a recipe I'm doing over the weekend, or, whatever it is, right? Yeah. That's not a top priority. It's a nice step. But if you commit to those rocks, the income generating activities and the self-care, those 2 things are going to make such a dramatic difference.
Yeah.
Just think of 6, that's it. And then the rest, either outsource or chunk your time when you're doing calls and emails, chunk it. Like, this is your rock, a block of time, like, I'm going to do emails.
Yes.
This is my chunk of time where I'm going to make phone calls, right? Because how often all throughout the day we're doing all of it. And each time we do it, we're distracted in and out of what our focus is, right? Right. It takes us a while to bring us back. So that then becomes, okay, so I need to do, for example, all this stuff to qualify for this house. All right, I'm going to do all these activities. Or I'm doing my Google Hang with diet and all the things that are prepared there. I do that as my rock. That I know I'm doing that. It's one of my rocks today, right? I've got my daughter set up for some school stuff. So I'm like, I've got to do that. The deadline is coming up. I've been doing my research. Okay, I've got to submit that. You see what I'm saying? Absolutely. So those are some things. Those are the rocks, like the must-dos. And if you think of that, instead of having this laundry list of things every single day, you feel bad about yourself the rest of the day because you didn't think you got anything done. Versus having a mind shift, I said I was going to do these 6 top priorities, and I got them done.
And Yasmin, I bet when we take that approach and get those really important things done, we become energized and feel good about what we've accomplished. And all of a sudden we find at the end of the day, gosh, I've got this time left to go to the store and get those nuts for the,
for the recipe that I want, right? Whatever. I don't know what. Exactly. Yeah. And that's the sand, right? So, sometimes we use this sand to procrastinate. Yeah. Yes, sometimes, if we have to call a person back that we're resisting, that we put off, but we have to do, or whatever it is, but then it becomes, such a priority. So these are things that absolutely contribute to your health, your wellness, your well-being, because this is designed to help reduce stress, keep you focused on what you're good at, keep you focused on what you're passionate about, keep you focused on what's important and a priority to you. And when people really, I'm getting my chill check, when people really start to have this mind shift, they will see such a different relationship to themselves, their life, their spouse, their family, their business. Because when you prioritize really healthfully, it is a game changer. And I think you and I, and as a group, we talked about a phenomenal book I read the last quarter of last year called The One Thing.
And I've still got to read that one. I got to admit, that's going to be the one thing, a rock that I put on my list.
It's right in there. And so I just did Audible, honestly. So I listened to Audible and I was driving around and I was listening to it. The One Thing was a game changer for me, and it absolutely coincides with the topic of today. So that's kind of like the recommendation, if you will, for today, to do the rocks, the pebbles, the sand. and focusing on really that one thing that's so important, like in general, like that passion, your thing that, you know, lights you up like a Christmas tree that you were talking about. So I recommend that book as well.
Yeah, Yasmin, I'm just watching a video that the guys made, and I downloaded the PDF because it's all about the owl and the wow mind. And the owl mind is the one that really gets us going down the rabbit hole in the wrong way. And I wish I could tell you more about what it is now, but just in what I've been looking at so far, it's like, wow. So I want to get on that wow side, you know, even more consistently. I think that's our goal. Is we, you know, we all have things that we know we need to work on, and that's just life. The only way that's going to change is if I'm no longer here, and I want to keep being here. So I think you've given us some great tools and some reminders. Just the visual of the rocks, the pebbles, and the sand, and the order in which they go in that jar is phenomenal. I mean, I'm never going to forget that. You know, I love these kind of I don't know, little analogies and visuals, and that's going to be really helpful for me. So thank you.
Absolutely. I didn't come up with it. You know, we're coaches. Nothing's really necessarily new, but I'm an avid student and an avid teacher, much like you, and much like many coaches, trainers, and teachers. The best, you know, teachers make the best students and vice versa. And so I just pull from what really resonates for me. And I say, take the best and leave the rest. And that's one of those that's on the best list.
Hey, I love that. Well, yes, it's been awesome talking with you today and having you train everybody. I know that we have one more day in our 4th week. And, you know, just to remind everybody, this is the Get Your Biz Lean. And we have a 30-day, what we call the Epic Coaching Challenge, plus a bonus week. Because we are 5 generations of expert epic entrepreneurs. We call us the E3 gang. And so here we are, and we have, you know, Stephanie in her 20s, and Jen in her 30s, and you, Yasmin, in your 40s, and Cheryl in her 50s, and me in my 60s. And I guess we got something for everybody, you know, a little bit of experience, a little bit of this and that. And we have talked about the different areas that impact our business, which the first week was on the mind shift and what we need to do overall relative to all of the topics. Stephanie was great the next week on finances, on your business and your personal life. And then Cheryl came up with relationships. And she is the queen of that with her Kitchen Table Conversations project. And Yasmin, you were great. We had the opportunity to be on there with her a couple of times. And then, of course, our overall with the well-being. And the well-being just takes on so many categories, you know, with all of those categories. And then our 5th week will be with Jen Santoro, Coach Jay, and she's going to be really diving into the process of being what solution focused versus problem focused in your business. That's going to be exciting. So we've got one more day tomorrow, Yasmin, and Coach Jay is actually going to be on with you tomorrow. And I know y'all are going to be giving us some more good tips. And
we are. We're going to continue on this. I came up with in my coaching practice, I came up with something called the Success Compass. It ties into what we're talking about here, and it ties into prioritizing and actually creating sort of a placemat, if you will, that you put it all in for health and wellness and income generating activities and all of that. And we're going to talk about that and how to also clear yourself for the day, or when you get stuck or stopped, you can clear yourself or call a buddy to clear you so you can stay focused and on track on your path to success.
Hey, that's great. Well, I can tell
And the wellness wheel.
Yeah, we're going to be doing the deep dive on the Wheel of Wellness tomorrow. So fantastic, and we will look forward to seeing everybody then. Thank you, Yasmin. You're awesome.
You're awesome. Thank you so much.